Hello, hello, hello. All right, welcome to your reading. Let me just take a look at one thing really quickly. Okay, perfect. All right, so let's go ahead and jump right in. Camera looks good. Okay, perfect. So, all right. I wish this basketball I have on in the background. I'm not even like looking at. I just like look at the score every once in a while, which I didn't show here, but maybe if I stand in the way. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Okay. All right. So let's jump right into this reading. So Marcella. So very interesting chart. With the ascendant in Capricorn and the sun in Leo in a very epic stellium in the 8th house. Wow. A Leo. And then the moon in Scorpio in the 11th house with Mars. So, and right next to midheaven, 11th house. So how are these all coexist? How do they all work together? So first of all, the sun and the moon. So you have the sun in Leo and the moon in Scorpio, both in fixed signs, meaning they are squaring each other, and it's actually exact degree, 6.44 to 5.37. So basically, like that can be looked at as a pretty tough placement because just the overall energies of the masculine side of you, like the Leo side and the Scorpio side, they're at odds with each other, right? They have completely different goals. Leo on one hand is a sign, as you know, I don't really like to go too far into like the sun sign, so we get it, you know what a Leo is, you know what I mean. And I know you have like a understanding of astrology. But Leo, is all about, it's a fire sign. It's all about, just like creativity and inner child and letting yourself go. While Scorpio is kind of the opposite. It's like very, very like it's all about it's restraint, deep inner psychological like analysis, right? So on one hand, there's a part of you that's here to really shine, right? But the thing is that all this Leo energy falls in the house of Scorpio, the 8th house. So this is where it gets really interesting, right? So Leo and Scorpio. So you're like me, with like a sun square moon that's in fire and water. And basically the way I describe it is that, there's part of you that wants to like be like this very introverted, I say sometimes that wants to sit around and meditate all day. And then there's another part that wants to go out and explore and create and be social and have adventures and the like, right? So with with the Leo energy falling in the 8th house, though, it's going to favor a lot more the Scorpionic aspect of you. So you have a very, like I made the post the other day about the 8th house person, like that is you to a MFing T, right? So yeah, so like just to kind of explain, like I really like to start my readings by explaining like how these two interact, the sun and the moon, the two most important parts of the chart. So one's the lion, one's a scorpion, right? So the lion is very outward, right? But then the Scorpio part is very suspicious, right? It's very involved with like the darker parts of reality. It's very guarded, while Leo is very trusting. And it can kind of create, so it's like how the question becomes like, how do you allow these two to coexist? Like, where do you find the middle ground? And I forgot to share the screen. I go on back and forth on sharing the screen for these. Let's share it. By the way, it is 6 o'clock in the morning. I am literally a vampire. Even this is late for my standards, but I was feeling good. I rarely do 2 readings in a row, but I just did one really well, and why not? So okay, so with this energy, so we see the chart here, all this Leo, right? So Leo in the 8th house is Leo is about authentic self-expression, right? It's about finding that inner child. It's about through your own creations. And the big thing with Leo, the high Leo is not looking for external validations. It's looking for internal validation by the way that it creates, whether it's like something that you do or just your personality or something that you create, right? You're understanding yourself better, right? So essentially, your scorpionic 8th house process is going to be a very, very interesting one, because it's going to take on a very fiery Leo kind of external, I guess, manner. So really the essence, if I had to boil this chart down into like one question, it's like, how can I go into my depths, into my shadow, into my own personal darkness and emerge with light, right? How can I fearlessly enter, like this like screams like inner child work. Like how can I fearlessly just go into the depths of my unconscious, like through whatever like creative, whatever your creative outlet is, or just whatever, in this like sunny, like because Leos have these like very sunny, gregarious personalities, right? But yours is going to be a lot more, it's going to be a lot more intense. You're going to be a very intense Leo. So you're not going to be a lot like many other Leos. Are way more Scorpio, and having Mars in Scorpio, which is like the strongest position with Aries, in dignity, right? It's called indignity. Makes you even more Scorpio, right? Like I just had a reading where the person had, the client had Mars and Scorpio. And I was like, that could be like a defining point in your chart when you have any planet in dignity. So basically, so much of your life purpose is just, it's very interesting because your South Node's also here in the 8th house, but so much of it is into this internal process, this process of death, rebirth, and transformation, right? That's like the 8th house. It's also, it's very, very secretive. It also deals with other people's resources. And, the fact that it's ruled by Leo, where'd it go? Oh. It's just like a very different, it gives you like a very enthusiastic approach to everything 8th house. So 8th house is the doorways. It's like this big gate. I always imagine in this gate to this very dark, I always imagine in my head like this cemetery like place, right? And people are so scared of it because it has to do with like life after death, right? The occult, the esoteric, things that are taboo, taboo sexuality. And for most people, these gates are closed. People don't want to go there, like the depths of human psychology and shadow work, right? But for you, it's open. And because Leo is such a bright side, you enter in this very enthusiastic and almost childish, in a good way, childish, way, right? So Sun in the 8th house people, regardless of what sign it's in, they go through life in this way where it's almost like you could break down their lives into like different periods of time. I said this in my post the other day. And they literally feel, I have my Sun in the 8th house too. They literally feel like they were different people. Like literally, like they feel a lot of times like they were actors. Like the people who, like, their past versions of themselves were actors, like playing them, because they're so different, because they've gone through so many drastic death, rebirths, and transformations. So accepting change is a massive part of this, right? So also, Sun in the 8th house people, they're not surface level at all. They are very interested in the mysteries of life. And sometimes they can feel a little bit out of place in this world, right? Especially when you have a moon in Scorpio. You maybe growing up, you were looked at, and you have Chiron rising, as someone who is like I don't want to say the word negative, but like very in tune with like the darker sides of reality, right? Mika, you are so obsessed with me right now. And so people with Scorpio moons, they really want to they need to be surrounded by people who can handle them in all of their moods, right? Because it's a difficult moon sign in that it's very, very up and down, right? So it experiences like very intense emotional highs and emotional lows. That's why I had like a ranking of like most difficult. 1 second. The easiest moon signs and the ones that I chose for most difficult were Scorpio in let's get our T going. We're Scorpio and Capricorn. And the reason for that with Scorpio is that it's just so intense. You know, a lot of times it can lead to like kind of mental health challenges and just like really like at a lower vibration, because I also made a post. I know you follow me on Instagram, that's why I'm talking about my post. And for anyone watching this who doesn't, it's at Jesse Innocent Astro on Instagram. That's where I do all of my work besides these readings I post here. I talked about I just totally lost my train of thought. What was I just saying? God, I just thought of something and went away. It'll come back regardless. So yeah, the 8th house or the Scorpio, yeah. So it's really like involved with the dark. Sorry, I apologize. I completely just lost where I was going, but I will get back to it. I wish there was like a go back button, but like I was talking about something I did on Instagram. 8th house. God, well, slipped my mind. Anyways, we'll come back. But yeah, okay. So backing up, you know, the essence of the Scorpio moon, they need to be around people that they can really like express all their darkness. And I talked about the ranking. So like it's like this epic shadow work, this epic, you're like pushed in. It's almost like there's no choice to be pushed into this this life of like of going really deep beneath the surface in terms of self-discovery, right? And you know, the North Node is in Aquarius, so that's interesting. I'll get to that later. But with Chiron rising, you know, you're definitely someone who's meant to be a healer, and also, you know, it may show on your face, right? So potentially, like people may like see pain, like, but also they may see you as a healer, right? So you're someone who maybe like had some real like karmic pain or trauma to your body in some way, where you really had to like reclaim that, right? Maybe there's some health issue that happened, right? But overall, you know, the way that the Leo is working here in the 8th house is that the Leo sun, this is why it's frustrated. It really wants to shine. So Leo suns prefer to be in like the 1st house, the 5th house, the 9th house, you know, fire houses, even the 10th house, right? But in the 8th house, this dark house, even, and we have this in common, you know, because I'm an 8th house Pisces sun with the Leo rising. The Leo sun has a hard time shining, and it doesn't like that. So Leo, you know, it can be very egotistical, right? And it can be at its lowest, like about me, like, and you know, Leos just in general, they do typically like need a lot of attention, right? But so there's gonna be one party that like seeks this attention, seeks this approval, and then this other part that like wants just like, it's the most private sign, Scorpio, like an emotional need for privacy, right? So but as I was saying before, like the Leo sun is going to have a tough time shining in the 8th house unless you really go towards 8th house matters. So things like psychology, things like the occult, the esoteric, right? These are areas where you can essentially shine. But a big part of the karma is understanding your own darkness. So there's a very high chance, because of like how the Chiron is, and you know, anyone with Capricorn rising, you know, they typically have to grow up fast, right? They have to kind of like, they're forced into a karmic position a lot of times, where they have to really kind of grow up at a young age, right? Maybe it was the family circumstances that forced it. And also, speaking of family, a lot of times people who have a square between their sun and their moon, they come, they not all the time, but they come from divorced families. I know I do. And if it's not that, there can be some type of energy where they really basically like have like a completely separate message, right? Like inherent like message that they get from their mom and that they get from their dad, right? It's like you have to like boil down. If you read my book, but I talked about like the unconscious message that I got from my father and then I got from my mother. And I'm trying to block this TV. I know it probably doesn't annoy anyone besides me. And those two are going to be very different, right? So in essence, how do these two work together? Well, I already said the thing about inner child. There's a lot of people who have like charts like this. They have to get past their ego, and there's lots of frustration in early age because it's so difficult for the sun and Leo to shine in that just like dark 8th house, right? But you can shine through almost letting go of the ego and going towards this authentic form of self-expression, right? So instead of the self-expression where it's like, oh, I need to show people how good I am, I need to like prove to them and blah, blah, blah. It's like, you know, I can do this. Like I can write this poetry book. I can create this, that, and the third and not show anyone and still be happy with it. So that's a huge thing for like Leo in the evolutionary journey. It seems like I have ADD, but I need to pour more water. It doesn't make noise. And if it does, I'll pause. Oh, it's making noise. Okay, so I'll pause for like 1 minute. Okay, I am back. So yeah, so it's a tricky thing, but like basically like it's like almost like you're trying to become a star, Leo, a star at esoteric knowledge, right? So the more like knowledgeable that you become from an esoteric level, the more that you start to develop. So the more that you realize 8th house issues are where I'm meant to be, because the Leo sun, they might get tricked into thinking early in life, like, oh, like I'm meant to like, you know, shine in this area and that area and more like, you know, be the center of attention. And then like, you know, the Scorpio moon can really get in the way, you know, because Leo, like a Leo person is lighthearted. They're not like so deep into their darkness. They're the opposite. So the Scorpio moon, Leo will be someone who is going to be so aware of their personal like unconscious and shadow, that's going to be difficult to have all those shiny kind of attributes of Leo, right? All those shiny, like a gregarious, happy all the time. You know how Leos can be. So it's about balancing those two out. And this is like why your chart's so karmic. It's because it's forcing you with that Mars in Scorpio 2 into this death, rebirth, transformation. So in my post on the 8th house, I wrote, the more knowledgeable they become on esoteric issues, the more they start to develop from a spiritual point of view. The material existence is something they need to adapt to because their approach to life is rather spiritual. So the earlier you learn that lesson, the more less suffering your life. Mika, not again. I can't do this. You keep staying in front of my thing. So the earlier you learn that lesson, the better off, right? And sometimes there can be like the suffering struggle for this placement to kind of like try to shine like more like mainstream type of like areas, right? So another thing about 8th house, it's super secretive. You'll be the type of person that people come to when they have secrets. And secrets, you know, to some extent, like some people with a lot of 8th house, they live like double lives. Yeah, it's very interesting. And yeah, what else did I say in this? So House of Secret. So they're very secretive personality. Because of their secretive personality, people get attracted. So there's also this real magnetism that comes from being an 8th houser. And really, one great thing about the 8th house is like the door, the gates to the unconscious, the gates to like all this field of study that's so like so many people are so afraid of. It's just like there's almost like this flashlight, this like lantern where you're able to navigate that cemetery I spoke about, right? And because, you know, Leo is a fire sign, it's literally like a great metaphor. It's like the fire, right, of Leo is in giving you this real enthusiasm, and Venus in there too is really helping that as well. What else did I say? So, okay. Yeah, so like illuminating what's usually in the darkness. That's the natural talent. So yeah, obviously, like everything about learning, like everything that's hidden, everything that's occult, esoteric, that's just so important. I already talked about, like, you know, not recognizing who you used to be, and I know everyone has that to some extent, but like 8th house people, like to a crazy extent. But sometimes, yeah. So strengths: intense, introvert, and observant. So yeah, like this is like the psychologist who has all this 8th house energy, the person who's so interested in delving deep into like human psychology. They're not afraid, you know, like mysteries just are so interesting to them. But they can be very introverted because they're such deep people. So this is like, once again, this push and pull between the Leo, who wants to be so extroverted, and the Scorpio, which wants to be so fucking introverted. The Scorpio wants to sit down, like Scorpio Moon are the researchers. They want to like go in and just like research all these different topics, and like they have this endless reserve, right? And the Leos, they want to just be social, and they want to go out, you know, in the world and show themselves. So it's like, how can you mix those two together? Well, maybe in one way you can be someone who's like, you know, like researching something deep, and then you take your research of like something 8th housey and you put it out into the world, right? So okay, strengths: intense, introvert, observance, super observant, super, like there's also like with the Scorpio Moon, you have this built-in lie detector, right? Bullshit detector. You just know when someone's full of shit, and you're able to rely on that so heavily, right? You definitely aren't someone that comes off as like, and I purposely don't. One of the reasons, like, people ask me like why I follow them on my personal Instagram account. One of the and why I don't really look at my timeline much on my Jesse and Astro, my main account, is because you never know who can be my client. And I try as hard as possible not to know about my clients because I don't want it to skew my readings, right? But I would imagine that you are like way more Scorpio than Leo. And with the Capricorn rising, there's actually like some similarities between Cap rising and Scorpio rising in terms of like looks and just like this real serious kind of look to you, right? Yeah, so it's interesting. So it's like, I would imagine that you probably come off as way more intimidating than you really are. And when people get to know you, they're like, oh, it's Marcella, the Leo. Like, she's so nice and chill, but she, you know, she's very intense. And I think we probably no, we don't share that in common. But like, I do have similar energies to you. So okay, so distant, cold, and aloof as challenges. Yeah, I mean, like when you're such a deep person, you know, like you can spend so much time in the depths of the unconscious, of the shadow, that it can make you kind of like distant from other people, because it's hard for them to match your intensity. It's hard for them to match your 8th housiness, right? Okay. So it's, yeah, another thing is like constantly going through transformations to make themselves better, right? Like each day you're always, how can I improve myself, right? It's possible for them to often make changes in their appearance, but as they're not, I don't know about that with the rising. Not superficial at all. They're the type who looks for books on illumination, self-improvement. Also, sex, that metaphysical type of sex is super important, like that tantra, kind of like two souls becoming one type of sex. And in terms of partnership, you're gonna really need someone who respects your secrecy, and someone who like who is also somewhat engaged, and who can, like, you definitely need someone who can handle your intensity. So like kind of like a rock. I would imagine like earth energy would be so like would do really good with you, because you're kind of, like I said, you're similar to me in ways we're both really, really intense. And I know like for me, I definitely like need earth. And do you have any earth? Do you have a Capricorn rising? I mean, yeah. Air, where's the air at? Where's the air at? Where's the air at? Where's the air at? So no air in your chart. Besides, yeah, no air in your chart. So you do have air actually, or earth, because you have Jupiter and Taurus, which I count Jupiter kind of as a middle planet. And the outer planets I don't count. Like, yeah, you have Saturn and Neptune in air, but although they do have functions, they don't have real like psychological functions that I see as relevant. It's more so societal. So yeah, it's all like intimacy is super huge. So like the kind of love where you can get really, really, really deep. So like there's this real back and forth probably with you, where I'm guessing like between introversion and extroversion. I'm guessing that introversion wins a lot of the times. Many will find them too withdrawn and won't want to intrude in their life. So yeah, like the whole thing about discovering mysteries is super important. I'm gonna actually present right now. Why should I like to spend at least some of the time where it's presenting? Come on. And yeah, for them, death is not an end, but more of a transformational process. They'll be aware that adolescence means the end of childhood, and adulthood is all about leaving their parents' house and building a life for themselves. The same position of the sun suggests they would look to grow and develop with the help of their life partner. That's why they're not looking for some superficial relationship. They want that serious, life-changing one. And with Venus in the 8th house as well, like there's like it's in your relationships too, where there's like this mix of lightness and fun and childishness with this real depth and intensity. Really interesting person. Like that's a really interesting thing. Also, I would love for you to message me about something. It's a group I have. It's a private group, invite only, and I basically handpick the people, and I think you would really, really benefit from it. So especially with your 11th house Scorpio Moon. So shoot me a message. I don't think you're in it already, about that. And I don't say that to everyone, only when I see something in the chart and I've dealt with the person for a while. So their ideal lover will want to unite into wholeness with them, believing that only through the relationship they're having, things about themselves can become clear. So you're learning so much through these really intense partnerships. And you obviously need to have a super trustworthy partner. That's why I said Earth could be like really good, because like, signs like Virgo, Taurus, Capricorn, like I've always found them to be very, very trustworthy and consistent. And that's really what you need. And it can be challenging for them to not become dependent on the one they love and to trust this person completely. It's difficult to define this house when it so much influences natives to expand with the help of their romantic relationships. And also sex is like as I said, a spiritual union for them. So it's super passionate lovemaking. Like it's like that next level thing, like I said before. So yeah, you see kind of how these are playing out. So Moon in the 11th house. Talk about that a little bit. It's conjunct the midheaven. So that means that like your friendships, the groups that you're meant to be a part of, although you're probably a very secretive person, they're still with Mars. They're also a drive for you to find groups like the one I just wanted you to message me about, right? But groups where it's like you're really able to explore the esoteric and transform through these groups, right? With this 11th house. So it's mega important to groups, friendships, also like goals, like long-term goals is 11th house. Humanitarianism, it's the house of Aquarius. So it's like you really want to like make a difference, but you really have to have like an emotional bond with groups, and you would love to be like parts like joining like groups or friendships. Like your friendships, they have to have like a deep emotional spiritual quality to them, or they're not going to really do it for you, because the arena of life where you express your Scorpio Moon is in the 11th house. which is, as I just said. So, and yeah, Mars there is it can in midheaven means that like there'll also potentially be a oh, there it is. They're finally full screen. Like like these groups, whether it's like, let's say like you join like an astrology group, or you join like some type of like association, or maybe like you have like a really amazing friendship. These will be huge for your career and your dharma, and like what you're, it's not necessarily only career, but what you're really here to do on an outer level is very assimilated with other people. And that goes with your North Node in Aquarius, right? North Node in the chart represents the mountain never climbed in past lives, right? So when we have, and it's like a very big destiny point. So when we have it here in Aquarius, I had that as well, by the way. It means that it kind of doubles down on that you're really meant to take risks when it comes to doing things for the greater good, right? North Node Aquarius people, they're here to kind of shy away of past life tendencies of being the star, the Leo star, you know, and to kind of like it's almost like you have to be doing things that are for the greater good, you know, for the collective, selfless acts per se. So yeah, that's playing hand in hand. But then the fact that it's in the second house in conjunct Juno also, it's kind of saying that there's been too much of a past life impetus, importance on forming these like coalitions, or like really like where you're I guess you could say like really attaching to other people for power, not necessarily people, but just like where like in this life you're really meant to find that power from within, right? So an example of this would be like someone who just always knows like what alliances to or like, let's say like they're like in a very high like position, like a prince or a princess, or like, you know, like they through their alliances they gain power, but they're not necessarily relying on that internal power. That's what you're really like meant to be finding in this life. And that's completely related to that 8th house, like dark night of the moon, just like fucking just straight speed rail train down to your personal shadow. And it might have been difficult for you early in life, because you may have felt like, man, like, why do I have to go through all this fucking bullshit? Like all this tough stuff, like other people that I know, they don't have to go through this. And, you know, that same thing is what led you to astrology. It's what led you to whatever, you know, you're passionate about in the 8th house field, right? So very interesting stuff. I'm looking for something here in this book. I love to use, I don't always use notes, but I just refound this amazing book that I like to use sometimes. But where the hell is it? Music break. And let me see, is there any squares or anything to the nodes? Oh, we got oppositions. We got South Node conjunct Venus and Merc, and square Jupiter, and also conjunct. Damn. Oh yeah, it's part of so your South Node's part of that massive stellium that's square Jupiter. All right, got you. And let's see, with Sun, it's square Moon. Obviously, we talked about that. So that's just like such a huge one. Sun square Moon. I mean, that's like, yeah, like I said before, like the message from your father and your mother were very different, and it's just hard to assimilate that. And that everything that Sun square Moon is like this big difference between Leo and Scorpio, and how it's difficult to have that. And it can kind of almost sometimes create double, like two personalities, like two beings within you. I honestly have that for myself. I have the Pisces side, and then I have like the Leo Sag side. And it's literally a thing where like Like some other people like have like all their energy that's just like going in one direction. Like people like me and you, it's like it's difficult because we have, you know, two forces pulling us different ways. So besides that, I'm trying to see, okay, so I'm just looking to see for any like big squares from outer planets. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay, so not any like, not too many crazy aspects. So I'm still looking. Okay, here it is. So no, it's in the Jupiter. So I want to talk about the fact that you have Jupiter square your south node from a past life perspective. And so this is about unresolved material relating to your beliefs, the teachers or teachings that you may have followed in past lives, and to your overall relationship to faith as a concept. So the skip step can indicate an issue with honesty, either through a conflict of how the truth has been perceived or through some type of inner lie. And the nature of the inner lie is often stemming from internal exaggeration at the expense of the true picture of the nature of the self, right? So this untruth can ultimately become the basis for a crisis of self, or if it's publicly exposed, can also change the level of trust someone has placed on you, thereby changing the belief system they have about you, right? So this placement can also signify a crisis of faith or a conflict within the self about an understanding of the truth. So also an issue with a teaching they have followed. So this crisis of faith becomes a fundamental doubt in the capacity of the person to understand their place in the greater scheme of things. This can therefore indicate an issue with alienation. So I just wanted to throw that one in there. Okay. We need to go grab a different. 87. Okay, here we are. So the south node is in the 8th house. Okay, so all right. So okay, so south node in the 8th house. So as we know, south node is like the past life tendency. So you have it in Leo. And this is like kind of like what I was saying. I just like to sometimes read notes because it can give it in like different language. So they tend to ally themselves in past lives with powerful people and systems and or systems of knowledge, thereby challenging their own power through such allegiances. Regarding systems of knowledge, I make a differentiation here from the Sagittarius quest for knowledge. In the Scorpio archetype, the intention is not necessarily a search for meaning, but rather to claim or try on the power inherent or implied in a powerful belief system. So this is the signature of previous struggles with the desire of the soul and a conscious understanding of their primacy. The level of this understanding is based on the evolutionary stage of the individual. For some, the struggle relates to material power. For others, occult or symbolic forms of power were the issue. And yet others had experiences of gnosis. While the individual has experienced the power of larger cosmic forces both internally and externally, they have also undergone cycles of powerlessness as they are not able to relate to or express such power. This may take the form of lack of money or authority on the material level, or psychological experiences of devastation as prior forms that facilitated conscious expansion seem to disappear, leaving the individual bereft. So there's themes of disempowerment to the extent that the person has desire to creatively actualize and empower themselves. They have periodically experienced powerlessness. So this is also like going, back and forth between, like, I was looking for this too because it's talking about the square between Leo and Scorpio, which is so huge, right? So it's like, yeah, to the extent that the person has desire to creatively actualize and empower themselves, Leo, they have periodically experienced powerlessness, because Scorpio is always between power and powerlessness, right? As they expose their pre-existing limitations and the resulting frustration that can bring. At the core of the Scorpio archetype is a piercing uneasiness that is born out of the residue of all previously failed attempts at the actualization of personal power. To the extent that this influence remains unconscious, then their relationship and creative life are cyclically darkened by it. This is one of the reasons why this archetype relates to hiding, the occluded quality these people can express as they seek to maintain a protective veneer over the vulnerable and potentially self-destructive side of their nature. Any person with an emphasized Scorpio signature, such as like you, might engage in manipulative behavior in order to protect or hide their vulnerability. So then with the North Node in the second house, the evolutionary intention is to develop a consistent set of inner values. So I talked about that before, right? Inner values. So you don't have to depend on these external sources, right? That lead to self-reliance so that they no longer are as dependent on deep relationships from the past as a way to actualize their goals. The newly developed internal values serve to create an alternative foundation for the psyche so that it is not so prone to manipulation, betrayal, and loss. In order to achieve this, many people will need to withdraw from their external environment for periods of quiet focus so that they can identify resources that come purely from within. So that's like the importance of time alone in contemplation, which that's, more about that square with Leo and Scorpio. The Scorpio needs time alone. It needs that contemplation, right? So the loss of seemingly essential relationships or symbolic forms of power, such as social standing, money, key psychological identifications, serve to isolate the individual for periods of time so that they can learn to rebuild a solid foundation of self-worth from within. So you see, like, there maybe some of your karmic circumstances could have related to some of those, right? While in past lives, like maybe like it was like this life was more of a grind for you. You know what I mean? A grind on a physical and psychological level. So some critical issues that arise with displacement include how to take care of the self, how to make enough money, right? I just said this, and how to generate energy and meaning from inside themselves without relying on shared resources of others or of institutions. So important. So this is showing that you're like an advanced old soul that's like really like taking on a very like intense karma, like transformational karma. So you're not like other people. Remember, like you are literally like have taken on like level 100. Where was I? Okay, so there's also a need here to question the meaning and value accorded to sexual experiences. Wait, yeah. People with this South Node in the 8th have often experienced intense initiatory sexual experiences that have led to powerful feelings of merging with others. This stands in contrast to the experience of those with the South Node of the Moon in the second house, who are more grounded in the body and the physical experience of sex, but not as comfortable with deep merger and emotional complexity. So so yeah, from a sexual perspective, yeah, it's there's already been that deep, intense like tantric kind of sex. Yeah. So okay. So it's like more about like the grounded in the body, physical kind of sexual expression. So people with this in the 8th house have an overdependence on using the intimate link with another to access their own soul nature. I'm going to repeat that. A past life karmic overdependence on using the intimate link with another to access their own soul nature. There is a compulsion to experience union with another rather than acknowledge the full extent of power that already exists within themselves. So there's a compulsion to experience union with another rather than acknowledge the full extent of power that already exists within themselves. Self-reliance comes through the regular practice of relating to their body, Taurus body, second house, Taurus body, and their own internal needs in an ongoing and attentive fashion. How beautiful. I usually don't read that much, but that was so freaking worth it. and let me know. I can totally like send that over to you too. Just to remind me that it was in the blue book, and it was about the South Node in the 8th house. So moving on. So I feel like there can definitely be. I'm gonna take it off. Stop share so you can see my face. So there can definitely be some struggles of like trusting people with Moon and Scorpio, like because there's so much emotional intensity. You're so aware of like kind of the undercurrents and the real motivations of people, that there can be lots of like issues with trusting people. Also, sometimes people with Moon Scorpio could have been born when their mother was experiencing a crisis, or they're like some type of traumatic birth. Not always, and they could have experienced their mother as intense, almost like possessive sometimes. But like, I don't really see like the aspects to back that up. Besides, I feel like it was more of just like a. I mean, it is actually conjunct Mars, so maybe there was like a various like assertive mother. Yeah, we'll have to talk about that. You didn't get the follow-up, but I highly suggest getting the follow-up session that I think probably 80 or 90% of my clients do, and it's literally the best, because we have this session. They really, I mean, like unless you know your chart well, I highly suggest, and I'd be happy to give you the same rate that I would have given you if you bought them both together. Because that's where we really can cement the information. I would really love to talk about like kind of how these are showing up, because it's such a complex chart. Because like I'm really curious about how this plays out, this 11th house, which is ruled by Scorpio. So it's it can create some type of crises, but like a lot of the death, rebirth, and transformation, like there might be like fights that happen within friend groups, within organizations, but then they lead to your deepest growth. So maybe that there can be like some shame that you've like had in your life, because it is such a public, it's so public for the Scorpio energy to happen in 11th house with Mars there, right? But you also act as a catalyst for your friends, right? Where you're helping them face hidden aspects of themselves. And you're definitely a super powerful member of the groups that you're part of. And you really help people transform. So if you were like a therapist, for example, you like would really thrive in group therapy. But also one-on-one, because 8th house, just overall great psychologist. So let's go back here. So Sun square midheaven is so your midheaven is in, so it's the same thing. It's like your career is meant to be sort of like that scorpionic energy, but that Leo part of you is kind of getting in the way of that. Or it's like everything I've been talking about with this Leo versus Scorpio is playing out in your career and like in your dharma, in what you're meant to do, which is more of the scorpionic nature. A lot of people with midheaven Scorpio, they have an intense need for recognition in their work, and it's about like really digging deep, like research type, like really like deep into the depths, right? So you have this ability to dig deep in your professional life, and you may attract crises at work. I already said that before. Like research and public resources are often featured in the chosen career. I think I see psychologists everywhere, but it could be anything, like criminologists, any like working in institutions of any sort. But something that your something like because your moon is conjunct your midheaven, you're gonna have an emotional need for your career to really like be very similar to to your Scorpionic moon, which makes me think that it'd be something to do with healing, something to do with the unconscious, because you would really like take so much from just like being able to like understand human shadow better and helping people through their own shadow work, especially with the Chiron on the ascendant. Like a lot of people I know Chiron rising are people who are healers. So but the thing also with the Chiron in Capricorn is that once again, and you do have also, you have Saturn in the 10th house, but it can have to do with kind of like pain, feeling insecure in your place in society and having difficulty like really finding your niche in the outside world, right? And a lot of times it can come from like a painful experience with the mother. But a lot of times, these are people who are healers, who, like I said, who decide to be healers and some type of healer. And the fact that the 10th house is ruled by Libra is once again, like it's choosing a career of balance, harmony, right? Balance is literally like psychology is like literally like it's a Libra profession, right? Libra and Scorpio profession. Scorpio for its depth, Libra for the fact that it's a one-on-one thing. Even like family marriage counseling, and also like preferring a very harmonious work environment, super important too. And the fact that you have Saturn in the 10th house is just like it's the best. It's the best place you can have Saturn, because it's in the Saturn is Capricorn and the 10th house is Capricorn. And basically like the one thing is that like your career you'll probably have to work really, really hard in your career up until the Saturn return, and then things just really opened up for you, because there could have been like this fear of public failure where you really started to like approach your career with caution, and you really just had to work, and you had all these setbacks that came up, but also it created, once that energy went away, tons of structure and hard work, and that's unreplaceable, right? And almost unlearnable, that led to you being very respected in your chosen profession, or leads to you being very respected in your chosen profession, right? And the fact that Saturn's in Libra, it's like creating, giving you the ability to create lots of like long lasting, like diplomatic, almost like smooth relationships in your work. And it makes one like a very committed, intimate partner, and like business partner, if you like had any kind of business partnership. So, and then the fact that Neptune's in the 10th house just like triples down on this whole thing of like, I just imagine you being someone who's like 10th house Neptune people, like it's almost like they not have to, but like they just like really, really want to make a difference, have like a spiritual connection to their career, right? Compassion has to feature in their career. And I see this so much in the charts of people who are in some type of helping profession. It could be a nurse. It could be so many different things, right? But something where you're really feeling like through your profession, you're connecting, like you're being of service, and you're connecting, and that being of service is connecting you to that feeling of oneness and wholeness. And it's also helping you get through your own personal 8th house journey, death, rebirth, transformation, right? Also, there can be experiencing a sense of loss surrounding your chosen life direction with that. And sometimes there's like some sacrifice that's needed in your chosen career. So, yeah. And okay, so moving back around. So back to Chiron, in the first house, a lot of times it has to do with like some type of pain, some type of trauma, to the body, like wounded either emotionally or physically. And a lot of times it's like early rejection. I know someone very dear to me has this, and she just never was really heard from her parents growing up, and just just felt like they just never saw her for her. So she ended up being a healer down the road, right? So it's like every time like you're almost like pushed to like not be yourself in some way. So yeah, it leads to like self-exploration, and typically like someone who's, yeah, it's on the ascendant. So it's like a super strong planet, Chiron, a wounded healer. Moving on. So, with love, Venus in Leo in the 8th, it's like, you're going to want, like I said, like a lover that you can go through these intense transformations with. But at the same time, you're going to want someone who you're able to have fun with and kind of lighthearted energy, right? Also, Venus in the 8th house, you're able to attract external resources and really benefit from other people's like money and resources. And it's just like really, really good. It's another one of these like flashlights, right? Like, or like lanterns in, like, I already talked about it kind of, but like in the 8th house matters, right? So it's really great to have your sun there and also Venus, because it's going to ease a lot of like of kind of the scariness of the 8th house. And those transformations might not be as intense and scary and drastic and plutonic. There might be a little Venusian touch to it, where you kind of see like, okay, this makes sense why I'm going through this, right? But your love life is going to really like be like kind of like in that same intensity of like just really intense, and you'll recognize that there's a huge like for anyone, but there's a huge like when you started loving yourself, that's when like the relationships really opened. And yeah, I know that can be said for every human ever, but like when you started really understanding that, like, that scorpionic part of you and really going towards that and being proud of it, that's when, probably when like the best luck came for relationships. But overall, 8th house Venus, it's gonna bring intense scorpionic relationships. And at the lowest energy, as I said in like a post, I think this is what I forgot from earlier. Like I talked about the low, medium, and high energy of Scorpio and how it's so drastic, the difference between them. So this is the same thing. Like early in life, like maybe there was like that same energy, where like the lower Scorpio traits of like possessiveness, jealousy, revenge, all those things maybe came out in love because it was just so much to handle. So Pluto in the 8th house. Damn, I'll go over that later actually. Okay, Mercury in the 8th house too. So Mercury in the 8th house in Leo. So first of all, Mercury and Leo people are very enthusiastic in their quest for knowledge. They're very proud of their learning abilities. They have a very like Leo way of speaking and thinking, like they can be a little bit out there. And sometimes they can be know-it-alls, right? But and sometimes they can be like show-offs with like their knowledge and stuff like that. But it's in the 8th house, so that's gonna push. Like I have Mercury in the 8th house too. That's gonna give you on this probing research, like kind of oriented mind towards the meaning of life in the occult esoteric, right? So you'll be really fascinated to like learn about these things, and you'll love to talk about these things with like-minded people. Hint, hint from the thing I told you before. So yeah, with any subject that delves beneath the superficial. So yeah, once again, 8th house Mercury people are not fucking people who are like superficial in their conversation. So you have Black Moon Lilith conjunct your South Node. Can we say past life witch? You have Pluto and Black Moon Lilith conjunct your South Node in the 8th house. And the vertex and Venus. Damn. So it's like, that's a lot of past life energy, right? And you're bringing on a lot, right? So the doorway to higher, so like the 8th house is like literally it for you. Like you are the most 8th house person I've ever seen. Or at least one of them. I've seen quite a few of them as an astrologer, so they tend to come to me. But yeah, just the fact. So Mercury conjunct Black Moon Lilith. So Black Moon Lilith is like the shadow. It's like kind of like the lower vibe of us. If we, it's not a planet. It's like if we go, it's like a point. So it's like a calculated point. So it's like for that, watching out for being like overly like Leo in your communications, overly like show offish, overly know it all. And what else can I say? One second. Yeah, sometimes people who have this, like they think that they're the ones that are giving, but really they're not. They're actually like taking a lot. And also, yeah, Leo's very, very honest. So let me think about this for a second. So yeah, like Leo, low energy Leo, like we talked about before, is like when you're really trying to do things for the crowd, you're really trying to do things for attention. So it could be like I would see it as like speaking out, kind of, you know, like because you have this like this Leo at Mercury, which is close to Regulus, speaking out and doing things like to get a rise out of people, right? Just because you know you have that ability. And that can, you know, be coming from like be linked to that Scorpio Moon, which is like you know, so sensitive that maybe like there can be times where you just blurt out things that are really, because you know exactly, okay, here it is, I got it. You know exactly how, like Scorpio Moon with Scorpio Mars, they are the people that literally know how to hurt other people. Like they know the thing that's to say that just will destroy that person. And this might be something, not to say that you do this, but at your lowest, maybe you know, you maybe you just like know exactly what to say that will just like destroy someone. And that's kind of like what to watch out for. But overall, like Leo Black Moon Lilith is a fear of change. I do a little thing here. So it represents the ego. So Leo, you know, obviously is like the ego and the position achieved is really important, because a lot of times the ego and the self-esteem is linked to like what's achieved. So integration can come from understanding that change is growth, not just numbers and success and worldly success. And also it can be bossy. So this combination can make someone who's like bossy, who always wants to be the leader. And it's just important to like be like, you know, sometimes you can take second place, and in doing that bring other people up, right? So that's kind of that, because the 8th house can be like very, very serious, and because they spend so much time in the depths, yeah, they feel like they know better. So moving on, one second. Okay. So yeah, like Capricorn rising, I just had one. You know, they are very like ambitious, like they have the face of responsibility on them. So if there's like I'm sorry, I can't remember if I said this in this reading, because I just had another Capricorn rising, or the last one. But like if there's two people in an interview who have the equal, like everything's equal, they're the same person, the Capricorn rising one's getting the job, because they're just very responsible and they have that on their face. They approach things very cautiously, making like lots of plans before starting anything new. They're the people who plod, right? And they're able to like once that thing is started, they're able to like really go towards it like consistently, and build and build and build and build. And you do have like elementally, did I already say this? You know, you do have the earth, you got the fire, you got the water, and I think I already said you don't have the air. So yeah, so not having air makes it difficult to. So one thing that you could really benefit from is breath work. One second. Let me close this. So people who lack air in their chart, they can really benefit from breath work, because it just create and just like getting yourself into air, like literally like it's that easy. Getting outside, getting it, you know, getting like pump, like working your lungs, anything like that. but it's, air is about perception. It's about being able to put yourself in other people's shoes, think kind of abstractly in that type of way, right? And that's sort of what's needed. So to kind of like see from like a logical point of view, right, is really important, because for you're very emotionally led, right? Leo's a super emotional sign. Scorpio's is maybe the most emotional sign, right? Like, so you're very emotionally led. So finding practices that can help you come from logic. So a big thing for that is taking a step back when a huge something happens that's big, right? That has a huge emotional impact. Not reacting right away, taking a step back, going on a walk, doing some type of practice, meditation, whatever it is that's going to help you. And yeah, okay. Also, Jupiter in Taurus in the 5th house, that's major creative energy. One thing I've seen from Taurus Jupiter is they have to watch out for like addictions and like overly like, because it's the senses, so that like they can like be like too much like with the sweets, or too much with like like a substance or something like that. So it's like they can go excess, right? But overall, they're on this very persistent search for truth, because it's trining your ascendant, right? And trining your, actually, no, it's not trining your Chiron, it's 11 degrees. But really, like, it can make one be like a very like wise teacher, and it gives you a strong desire for abundance. Like Jupiter and Taurus people want that money, and a lot of times they're very lucky and in relation to it, as long as you're following your north node. You see how it all connects, which is in the 2nd house of Taurus, which is not relying on the external so much, and relying on your own internal values, your internal structures that you create within yourself that give you security, right? It's almost like if you were like let go into the jungle, not necessarily the jungle, but like, let go into like a way more simple life where you didn't know anyone, where you just had to start over. Like, what do you have inside that you've created that you can rely on? That's the question, right? So with the 5th house Jupiter, you're always searching for ways of expanding your creative self-expression. Also, you could be really inspired by children. And it's very fun, creative placement. So like, this could be this is a very strong point of your chart, to have the 5th house, ruled by Taurus and Venus, and then have Jupiter in it. And I would imagine that if you have a creative outlet, this is amazing. Having a creative outlet for you is like a game changer, right? So yeah, and also 5th house rules like the casual sex. So Taurus people will typically like enjoy, sensual pleasures, and anything that involves like physical gratification. Even like singing, is something very common with that. All right. So, and yeah, the 5th house, ruled by Venus, which is in the 8th house, is going to also, which is in Leo, is going to also bring a certain level of depth, and that 8th house is going to be able like to be channeled into your creative outlet. So okay, so more about love. So you have your ascendant is Cancer, so you're seeking lots of comfort and like emotional comfort in your relationships. You really enjoy being in a warm and caring relationship, like cuddling, like and want to start a family. And by the way, like, I know you're born in 1952. I do my charts the same way for someone that's 2 as I do them for someone that's 10, as I do for someone that's 40. It's literally like how I do my charts, because I just want it, like, that's just how I do it. I want to be objective. So like, I understand that you could very well be married or not or whatever, but like, I'm just saying this. So you like to take care of your partner also. and a lot of times like smother the partner, like really have the mother instinct that comes out in relationships, which is beautiful, I think. But you have to kind of watch out to be, like not like too overly kind of codependent, I guess you could say. But that's not really what it is. That's more Libra. So it's kind of just more just like a nice motherly caring energy, which any good person would appreciate. So Uranus is in your 7th house. So that is very interesting. So that gives you a big need for unconventional relationships and a huge need for freedom within relationships, right? It's also important. So you will definitely learn a lot about your own individuality through, your own unusual, I'm going to share this thing in relationships, right? So, Uranus in the 7th house, people and, they'll tend to run away. So even though you have it with Cancer, like it still creates an energy where you might run away if you feel boxed in by someone. What else can I say about Uranus in the 7th house? I have scratchies in my nose. Let me just look at something really, really quickly. Okay. So yeah, you're just gonna like it kind of gives you like an Aquarius energy. So like there's this push and pull between like the Cancer energy of like a stability and closeness and the cuddly energy, but then also really wanting someone who you have this like bond with. And you're gonna really want, there can also be lots of surprises and just unconventional events and ideas that happen in your relationship. It's super interesting. Like they can just come at any time, like thunder. And you'll be more interested in the mind of the person, the intellect, and how individualistic they are, how different they are than someone like traditional. And the fact that the 7th house is ruled by the moon, which is in Scorpio, is once again saying that like you need that person to also be able to go to the depths, to be able to ground, to kind of like not push any side of that Scorpio moon around, right? Because the Scorpio moon is just like it is very, very up and down emotionally, as I said before. It's a very intense placement, and some people in Scorpio moons, they can have mental health issues in the respect that it's just very hard to predict their moods, and they can be set off really easily by like what may seem as small things. And okay, so over back to this house, the Mars in Scorpio, it's a super sexual energy. I said before, it's all about like that two souls becoming one in dignity. So it's giving you this massive drive in the 11th house towards friendships, right? Towards these groups that you're meant to be a part of, right? What just happened? So yeah, you're kind of just like karmically being pushed, like with an urge to make many friends. And I already kind of talked about that, right? And really like playing the role of leader within those groups. But then the moon there is going to create lots of ups and downs in those areas, in those groups. And also Mars and Scorpio can be like a dramatic person. On the lowest energy can be, it's not someone you want to fuck with, let's just say. So yeah. Okay. And the fact that the ruler of the 11th house is Scorpio, which is in the 11th house, or the ruler of Mars, Mars is in the 11th house. That just adds to that these groups, friendships, whatever organizations, ambitions is also 11th house. As I said, these play such a massive role in your life and in your career at the midheaven. So, okay. So more about love. So you have Juno conjunct the North Node. So that's going to like create lots of karma, like when it comes to your love life. And also it's going to like kind of double down on that, you know, really wanting someone who is unconventional and individualistic in their own person, who gives you tons of freedom in relationships. So it's that push and pull between freedom and safety, right? Which I think you understand intuitively. I think you understand this. Okay. Also, the fact that you have Pluto conjunct Mercury, that just gives you the ultimate researcher. Like when you find something you're interested in, you can just go all the way in, just so intensely. Venus square Mars, that can create like some tension between the feminine and masculine within you. You know, in essence, it's like, here, 1 second, actually. And I want to see what other aspects it has. Oh yeah, Venus conjunct Pluto. So that's like, and it's sextile Neptune. So your Venus is heavily aspected. So that's amazing imagination, amazing abilities. So that gives me really great hope that you have this creative outlet. Maybe you're a painter or something like that, or like some type of art. And I would highly suggest you to go towards that, because you have the imagination, Neptune, and the actual ability to put pen to paper or whatever it is, and get good at whatever you do with Venus. Venus conjunct Pluto, that creates death, rebirth, transformation through the relationships. We already talked about that. It doubles down on that comment. Venus square Jupiter is not like, that's probably like the best square in astrology. And I wouldn't really worry about that one that much. It just, if anything, there can be like a little bit of like over expansiveness when it comes to love. And maybe like betting too much, like a little bit risk taking. And then the fact that Venus is conjunct your South Node is just saying that all your relationships are karmic as fuck. And I think you were a past life witch, because you have Pluto and Black Moon Lilith conjunct your South Node. 1 second. So, okay, so then when you have Mars square Venus, so that creates lots of passion. It's also a sexual energy. You'll go after what you want with tons of determination. And yeah, it kind of just, it creates someone who doesn't really necessarily go in line with mainstream society. They beat to the beat of their own drum, which, you know, we've talked about that before. And then Mika, it also brings like in relationships, lots of like intense love, hate feelings. Mika, stop. So there can like be this real back and forth, especially with the Scorpio moon. So like any like little irritation can escalate rapidly. And like, you know how it is the Scorpio moon, like a little thing can take you off and then it could lead to a tantrum. But then that same feeling can like subside as quickly as it builds, right? So the lesson, Mika, stop it. Just knocking things over on my desk. So the lesson is to gain more control over the volatile passions. I need a charger. And that's just like that's just like in general, it's like self-mastery for you, you know, because you have such an intense inner life. And open and honest sharing of your deep feelings is like literally the most important part. And that goes back to everything I talked about with, you know, just like the moon in Scorpio. Oh my God. And the type of partner, or just like partner or even friend, it doesn't even really matter. Just like people that you'll be around, like Scorpio moon people, they need to be around people that they can just like be completely themselves. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, and physically creating things is super beneficial with this one too. Like sculpture is like a random thing I thought of. Just anything like that where where you're using your hands in some way to create is very, very important. Okay, moving on. So we've done this. So Vertex and Pluto in the same place is just saying, in Leo in the 8th house, the doorway to higher awareness is through these deep and super intense experiences of death, rebirth, and transformation. The doorway to other realities. You could be really interested in like psychics or, life after death, things of this nature, right? So also like it's very, very sexual as well. And the fact that the anti-vertex is in the second house, it's going to bring you to those that have this like very stable and secure affinity, like nature. And these people are going to be able to help you stay stable while you go through these very intense experiences, which is like totally something that I was kind of saying before. So yeah, we went over that. So okay. So Pluto in the 8th house, I always access my Pluto book. Mika, you're so obsessed. Speaking of obsession, Scorpio's obsession. Mika is obsessed with me. This is like the 15th or 20th time in the last, like maybe 30 in like these 2 readings that she's come up on my desk. I love her, but like she just messes my stuff up right now. Okay, so Pluto book, 8th house Pluto. Pluto is like the underworld, as you know. It's like the planet that rules the 8th house. It's such a massive planet for you. And basically, you kind of have to go deep into the Pluto depths to get like the underworld, to get the gold, right? So 8th house Pluto wants to challenge its pre-existing sense of identity, its needs, talents, and resources. It goes from the 2nd house's Taurus identification of needs and resources. Pluto in its own house represents a deep confrontation with the parameters of what we are and what we are not. Nika, stop. Symbolic forms of power such as people, money, rituals, occult, sexuality, in order to osmose that power into themselves. So I think it was saying like using symbolic forms of power to osmose that power into themselves. So yeah, it's a deep confrontation with what we are and what we are not. It's such a big challenge of pre-existing identity, right? And there's this big theme that I've talked about of attraction repulsion. That's huge for the 8th house Scorpio type. And the essence of this dilemma is rooted between the discrepancy between the ego and the ego's wants and the soul's desire, or soul's needs. The egos and the soul's desires, which can become locked in an extraordinary struggle. So that is so huge for you. What do you want? What do you need? Right? That's like a big question. The soul wants empowerment and expansion through new knowledge and new ways of deeply relating to others / the world. And the ego requires security through familiarity, seeking to defend its own comfort zone from the power to transform. So that's the battle, right? To transform or not to transform, right? So there's past lives where there's that theme of which one's again shown by the South Node there in the 8th house of power and powerlessness. So I imagine like some past lives of high Leo energy, and then like prince, princess, and others where it's the opposite. And intimacy becomes an obsession. Relationships can be intense, perhaps vengeful, as I've said before. Wow, what a reading. We're going way over, aren't we? Oh, God, wow. 84. Another one where I'm way over. But this is a complex one. So, okay, we did all this. We did all this, so we're getting close. Okay, part of fortune, kind of last thing I'll say. I'll probably like look at asteroids just to make sure, see if there's any big asteroids or fixed stars. So part of fortune is like kind of the smooth point of your chart where things just flow. So TV off, it's like working. So in the 4th house, your joy comes through being in touch with your inner self. Like basically like the Scorpio Moon, like really in touch with your inner emotions. And in Aries, tons of joy comes when you're flowing with this self-propelled energy, this adventurous, like beat to the beat of your own drum, just going forward with life energy, which is like, your Chiron's in the 1st house. So when you're getting past that Chiron limitation of just going, you're experiencing tons of joy, and you'll find fulfillment in using your willpower to achieve your goals. So, I guess we can go over, excuse me, the rulerships, just to see if there's any houses I didn't discuss. So, second house ruled by Aquarius. There can be, money and possessions can be unpredictable in your life, and you can really value your individuality and originality. So Pisces ruling the third house. There you can be very vague in your communications, and also have a very vivid imagination and fantasy life, and be a very creative writer. Neptune being in the 10th house, maybe that's a career. Who knows? 10th house, career. And then with Aquarius in the second house, Uranus falling in the 7th house, can relate to like shared possessions with loved ones being like up and down. So 4th house Aries, I think I talked about that. Mars in Scorpio, so that can be like in your family, there can be like lots of like battles. It can be like some kind of headstrong energy, but also being very independent of your own family and background, preferring to strike out, kind of go your own direction. So 5th house Taurus, we talked about that. That's like the one where you're like enjoying like the essential pleasures of life, physical gratification. 6th house Gemini, that's just like someone who's very easily bored with daily routine, and you can find it very difficult to keep a schedule, and often like juggling tons of projects at once. And it can create kind of some scattered energy of daily life. 7th house, we talked about it. That's the relationship one. 8th house, obviously, we talked about it with the Leo 8th house, just like, yeah. And Virgo 9th house. Wait 1 second, hold up. Yeah. So Virgo, ruling your 9th house, being ruled by Mercury. So that would make someone who likes to kind of like travel the world with like a very neatly packed, well-organized suitcase, itinerary, like everything's planned, striving for perfection in any higher education. And like in your search for truth, there's gonna be lots of order to it. Libra 10th house, we talked about, that's a career one. Scorpio 11th house, obviously we talked about. That's, the one with being like the catalyst to your friends, helping them face hidden aspects of themselves and transforming, powerful member of groups. And finally, 12th house Sagittarius. So that will make you, like, 12th house is very important. So ruled by Jupiter, which is in the 5th house. So you may feel that you are on a very spiritual quest and may encounter many teachers or gurus on your path. And inevitably, you will find that the greatest wisdom comes from within you. So it's like very important to like, kind of like I said, the part of fortune said, go within. All right. Well, that is it. Thank you. I went another 90-minute one. So I hope you enjoyed. So yeah, about the follow-up. What's just happened? My YouTube just went off. Anyways, what I was saying was just like let me know about the follow-up. I think it would be a great thing. It's up to you. And I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Ciao.